Uh, so on behalf of Sama Audit, let me extend a very warm welcome to all the participants who have joined in today, who have joined in online live today, and also to our distinguished speaker for today, Sidheswar Bhalla, popularly known as Sid. Today is the 40th session in the series of Analytics Wednesday webinar series that we have held. It's been a pleasure, holding this series and learning from all these speakers, distinguished speakers who have, imparted knowledge freely to everyone, because all these sessions are later on put onto the Sama YouTube channel. So therefore, there for students, professionals in the internal audit fraternity, risk management fraternity, forensics, etc. So, these sessions are really very valuable, coming directly from distinguished speakers who are in practice, also from board members and CFOs. Now, this particular session, like, the earlier sessions, the online sessions, and earlier the physical sessions that we held, Commission of Canada, they are supported by the Government of Canada, the Trade Commissioner Service. And Sama Audit, as you would be aware, I'll just repeat very quickly, has been at the forefront in bringing technology to the professional circles in India and the neighboring countries, whether it is internal auditors, risk management professionals, forensic auditors, forensic accountants, finance departments, accounts departments. Idea is, of course, the flagship product, which is the analytics product, but there is LSA from London, which is a continuous control monitoring solution. There's Smart Exporter, which is a direct plugin for SAP, which is the ETL for SAP. There's now, from April onwards, there are Caseware working papers, which are end-to-end solutions for the CPA firms, the CA firms in the country, and also for the finance departments, because they have templates for finance, they have templates for IFRS, they have templates for Ind AS, and so on. So, and also the number of training workshops and other things that Sama Audit brings to the table. So with that very short introduction about Sama, I would like to directly go to our today's speaker, that is Sid. So I'd like to formally introduce Sidheswar Bhalla to you. He brings 19 years of experience, professional experience as a chartered accountant and company secretary. He's a partner and leader, governance, risk, resilience, compliance, and sustainability, GRRCS, with Mazars in India, and was earlier associated with KPMG, EY, Deloitte, GE, BDO. He strongly believes in giving back to society and wears the head of Vice President, Institute of Internal Auditors, India. He believes to keep balance of profession and passion, and to nurture his passion, Sid qualified Jyotish Acharya from Bharati Vidya Bhavan and enjoys pastime in reading horoscopes. I think so. You have his email ID, and I think it'll be great. The second part is more interesting, I suppose. Sid. So anyway, Sid, over to you. Thank you very much for accepting to be with us and imparting knowledge. All yours, please. We are all yours. Please.
Thank you so much, Deepji. I think it's a wonderful platform, and you are doing a fantabulous job. At least it gives us an opportunity to share perspectives with our professional friends circle. And obviously, like you said, that it gets viral in multiple platforms. At any point of time, people can have a look at it as well. So thanks to you, and thanks to Sama. And once again, a very warm welcome to all the participants. I just thought that let me coin today's presentation that I'm making from the Shastras. Like you said, that second part is more enticing and more interesting. I thought, let me start with the second part by just coining this, what you can see. I hope my slide is also visible. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So it says, Swayam Mahavidya is the science of automation, basically. And how do we apply it in internal audit? So that's what I thought. I'll share a perspective on this. And as we go along in the slides, we'll make it an interactive one as far as possible. But I'm sure at the end, we will have a Q&A, which is there. So I'm just going to flip on the... See, to start with this, I will actually share a short video, and I'm sure this video will be audible. In case there is any challenge, bear with me, because any case, I requested Deepji that you can share the slide with all the participants, and they can also click it and have a look at it later. But let's start with the history of audit. Yeah. I'm just taking, this will be like a 3-minute shot, which we have a look at it.
Are you a finance professional?
Is
or an
the
accounting
voice
student?
audible?
Yes, yes.
Not so sure of your career options.
Welcome to the history of audit. At Mazar, we're proud to be auditors because of the important role it plays. To understand its importance and why we do what we do, it helps to know something of the history behind audit's development. The first references to audit are around the time of the Roman Empire, some 2000 years BC. The emperors appointed bright and ambitious young men that they considered trustworthy as quaestors. The quaestors were sent to the corners of the Roman Empire to ensure the governors who ruled the provinces were spending the money that Rome had sent correctly. The assets that money had bought were protected and looked after and existed. And importantly, that the taxes the governors were due to collect and send to Rome were being collected and were being sent to Rome without the governors taking a slice off the top. So the theme starts. Somebody, in this case a ruler, appoints someone they consider trustworthy to verify financial expenditure, assets, and that there's no fraud. Moving on some 3,000 years to Henry I of England. It was Henry I who first used the word audit, which actually means to hear. Like the Roman emperors, he sent auditors to the corners of England to confirm that the barons who ruled on his behalf those areas were spending the exchequer's money as it should do, that assets again were protected, and that taxes were being collected and sent back to the king. The key development, though, that created audit as we see it today was due to the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s. For the first time, investors became part of the business process. But investors will only invest money in something they believe is safe and they understand. So they appointed people they considered trustworthy, often business associates and friends, to verify that the information being provided by the management, the people behind the potential business, was, well, to use modern terms, true and fair, something they could rely on. So there we have it. Audit today remains about this. Someone trustworthy, reporting to investors, no, not companies, but investors, on financial information prepared by management, and whether that information is reliable, or again, to use the terms, true and fair. Of course, audits developed further. The stock market crash in the US in 1929 resulted in a lot of new regulation. From then, auditors needed to be professionals, qualified, not your friends. It also brought around a much greater focus on the profit and loss and financial reporting of performance. The development of computers and computerization enabled businesses to become truly global and truly massive. And we had to adapt our organizations and techniques to respond to this. Auditing scandals in the 1980s and 1990s brought further regulation. But one of these scandals
So as we saw this video, the intention to show this small video, it's a minute and a half more, but then I thought the relevant portion can be seen by all of us. And if you look at it, it talks about that audit as a profession is an age-old profession. Yeah, we heard the term questers. Actually, they were called as questers, yeah, the trustworthy people who can look into it. And that's why we say that we are trusted business advisors. Where I wanted to add to this is that, and also before I add another perspective to this, Today, we talk about internal controls over financial reporting. The Companies Act 2013 talks about internal financial controls. That means controls over operations. If you look at it, all of this was being talked about. Maybe these nomenclatures were not used, but they were all being talked about. The perspective that I want to share is that audit has been an age-old profession. Whether it's computerization, whether it's digitization, it's not going to die off. We just need to look at it with a different lens. And perhaps the stakeholders that expect internal auditors to provide assurance, that shift has to come in the auditors. The time that they spend on auditing, perhaps if I can now say traditionally, or 2 decades, 3 decades before, and what needs to get spent has to be changed. But that doesn't mean that what we have been doing so far has become redundant or it's not that important. It continues to be important. And that's why we need to have not the rudimentary way, but the modern way to provide assurance for those areas. For instance, if you look at an organization, the organization will primarily have 5 functions. Any organization you think of will have 5 set of functions. One will be a record to report, which is the finance function. You'll have hire to retire, which is your HR function. And this may be used in different terms in any organization. Then you will have order to cash, the sales side. You'll have procure to pay, the procurement side. In case of a manufacturing setup, it will be plan to produce. And in case of any other, depending on the sector that we talk about, if it's not the manufacturing, any other sector, then that particular operational area will come into play. But primarily, if you see, these are the 5 functions, broad category, mega functions, if we can say, it will fall. And as internal auditors, we have been auditing all of these 5 functions. Yeah. Should we discontinue with that because of this change that we are seeing, robotic process automation on the process side, digitization being talked about? Even I'll just take a quick snapshot on the budget, how it is. I don't think that's the ask. The ask is that let's also bring in digitization. Let's also enable a robotic audit for these areas and look at certain new areas as the time gets free for internal auditors to look at those new areas. So that's the perspective. The importance of people will never get discounted. If you look at this slide, it says key takeaways. And I have coined the word takeaways. It's not takeaways, but takeaways only, no spell mistake. It's for budget 2022. We recently heard the budget for the year 2022. And it talks a lot about it, but I've just picked up a couple of snippets out of it. So it talks about virtual digital assets. It talks about digital currency. RBI is going to roll out the digital currency in India. What does it actually mean? Does it mean that we also talk about robotic audit? That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that today, the ask by the stakeholders is changing. If we have VDA, which is virtual digital assets, we have digital currency, we've got similarly different types of ERPs that are there. The focus of internal auditors have to go towards cyber as one of the areas. Yeah. That's the tilt which is going. So are we equipped to look at those areas is the question. Let's talk about green bond, which is there. A new area, ESG, environmental social governance. We all know that there is a internal control framework. After the Companies Act 2013, all companies have developed either ICOFAR or IFC, depending on whether they are unlisted or listed. Actually, it is all internal control framework. When we talk about ESG, when we hear about green bonds, we hear about the net zero concepts, and we relate it to internal audit. What are we basically wanting to say? That the framework that is already in place, the internal control work that is already in place, must highlight certain data points which will contribute for an organization to say, are we moving towards net zero or not? That means the existing framework just needs to be revisited from a different lens. It's already, everything is in place, things are happening that way. Yeah. So should the auditor's effort not be in those directions, the internal auditor's effort not be in those directions? Because that's the ask by the regulators. That's the ask by the various stakeholders. You go to the audit committee, that's the ask. But if as internal auditors, we continue to spend chunk of our time on, say, a procure to pay review or a marketing review, and I'm not discounting and saying that we don't need to, but to the extent we can use bots over there, I think then we get our free time to actually spend time on these things. E-passports, ULIP, which is the Unified Logistics Interface Platform. My takeaway from this, apart from looking at it towards a roadmap on digitization, the Indian economy where it is going, is that data privacy norms are going to get further strengthened. The ask by internal auditors will be, are you looking at data privacy? Today, we say that if it's a company which is having some connection or a business relationship with the European part of the world, then GDPR is applicable. And we talk about the IT Act in India also. I think that will gain a lot of impetus. And that's something which, as internal auditors, we'll have to see. I've actually, towards the end, carved out some of the areas, and these are, which I'm just spelling out, is also, it's actually related. Everything is getting related over there. The post offices, first time we hear post office is the richest organization in India. They all will get on the CBS, the core banking system, e-Vidya concept. We've seen the pandemic, COVID, and now the government is working towards it. So I think where we as internal auditors need to see is what we are doing. Can we also have automation in place for that? And in the slides I'm going to present to you, I'll also show you some demos over here, how that bot actually works. Whatever is being done by a human being is actually replicated in the bot using the concepts of ML and AI, and all that stuff is there in between, and it's working at the back end. But yes, the importance of people. When we look at an organization, we say people, process, platform, which is the ERP. The importance of people cannot be downsized. And same way, when we talk about an internal audit function, the importance of people will never be downsized. Yeah. On a lighter note, we saw in the video that the auditors, the questers at that time, they were actually going on horses and all. Today, we'll go on bots. That's how I look at it. That's the only change that I see. But yes, the assurance that we have to give will not get downsized. If you look at the slide in front of you, I hope that slide is fully visible. It's the evolution of automation and corresponding internal audit techniques. Now, I'll read this slide from left to right and from top to bottom. So if you look at it, it says technology for business operations on the left-hand side, the upper half. Say the pre-globalization time, which was 1991, and we can take 10, 20 years, whatever, 30, 40 years before that, calculators were used. Perhaps in some of the times, if we go back, even it was human intelligence. It was not even calculators. But yes, let's talk about it, that calculators, spreadsheets, Excel, data analytics, system applications, standalone enterprises, in-house developed, all of those things were there. Gradually, we moved towards remote connectivity, the business operations, how they actually got translated, internet, yeah, www, ERP, various systems, cloud computing. Now we talk about robotic process automation. So on the side of the business, the RPA concept is getting prevalent. The finance functions prominently are the first ones to take the lead in this. Machine learning. Now you teach actually a machine and you actually inbuild a system that they will start interpreting the data or the inputs that are there. Big data analytics, blockchain. I think when we talk about cryptocurrencies and all, and the government is also doing it through the budgets, the day is not far when we will have to understand blockchain and attune our efforts on internal audit on those lines. AI, ML, all of those things. Yeah. How is the communication happening? If you look at the mid part of the slide, past letters, hard copy documents, maybe at some places we still do find that there's nothing wrong in it. It's only the change that is happening. India is actually a unique economy, a unique country where we've got diverse culture. We also have diverse ways of working. We still are in the traditional way, and we have the most modern ways also. I think that is also contributed to a large extent by globalization. Now, the point is, where do we want to serve as professionals? We want to serve across, so we have to be flexible over there. As time passed by, emails, laptops, audiovisual communications, and gradually today, if you look at it, the communication was also through OCR, optical character reading, NLP, neuro language processing, and all. And one of the ways in which you can actually, if you look at an NLP, is you can do an excellent forensic review by use of NLPs. High-speed internet, 5G, 4G are there. The lower part of the slide talks about the audit techniques. So we saw how the business is transforming. We saw the communication ways, how the operations are going. The audit techniques. I think, yes, though the first point, which is inspection, physical verification, inquiry, observation, you're saying it is rarely used, but it's still used. The quantum of input as internal auditors that we expect from an inspection or from an inquiry or from an observation has not come down. It's only the proportion of time that we need to spend. That means we need to focus, we need to be more pointed over there. So when I say that it is rarely used, doesn't mean that it is out or the importance is downsized. It's equally important. Because how do you understand the culture of an organization unless you actually interact with the individual? It's very important to know that. If you talk about culture audit, for instance, analytical procedures, data analytics, there was a time when it was used. Today, it is being used, but there are other CAT. Deepji was mentioning about some of the ways. I think he's already highlighted that, and we are moving towards that. System walkthrough, configurations and all, because we're doing a process review. And of course, the intelligent way of doing audit by use of AI, RA, remotely accessed tools. The pandemic or the endemic, COVID taught us how to do the remote way of internal audit. And I will share that also in a while with you, how we can effectively do that. Personally, I've also done that, and we have done it successfully. It may have costed some amount of extra time by the process owners on account of limited digitization, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And yes, obviously it is a step. I would say it's actually an introspection that has been there in the organizations to look at it, that can we go ahead and move towards a digitization process. Now, let's also slice down. We all know about the 3 lines model. It used to be the 3 lines of defense, where you have the first line, the process owners, and then an oversight role. And third line is the internal auditors, third line of defense. It's now the 3 lines model. And I'll go on this slide from bottom to top. On the left-hand side, if you see the first line, this is the place where actually things are happening. The transactions are taking place, that is happening. And here is where we talk about process automation. I'm not talking about audit automation, not robotic audit. I'm yet to touch that. I'm saying robotic process automation. Now, we all know there's a concept on control self-assessment, where we give an opportunity to the functional heads, to the process owners, to certify that the controls are in place. And many organizations follow that. I think automation of a control self-assessment in line 1 is, and many organizations have already done that, is one of the initiatives where we are moving towards, I will not say robotic audit because it's a self-assessment, towards an automation. The second line, if you look at it, is more like the oversight. So you have the risk management frameworks, you have the compliance frameworks, and we all know, we've been talking about for almost minimum of 2 decades that there is automation of a compliance framework. It could be manual, it could be Excel based, it could be the most, I would say, prominent form of tool that is being used, most sophisticated form that is being used. So compliance frameworks, risk management frameworks, we are actually moving towards, when I talk about risk management frameworks and we use tools, we are moving towards predictive risk. We are actually moving from a normal risk to a predictive risk. Can we envisage what sort of risk will be there? For instance, and just cite an example here, the tea business. If there is something that has happened in any other part of the world, say the western part of the world, and you see that that has caused some sort of ramifications, is it possible that it may happen in India? Now, that's being a bit predictive, because it has already happened in some part of the world, then it can happen in India. How do you do that? Is you actually go through the social media network and the sites, and you try and trace what are the various type of events that have happened. and you cull it down and put it that, okay, this is particular potential threat or a fraud which is there. So the second line of defense, how the digitization can help over there. The third line model, which is the internal audit. So we place the continuous audit. Yeah. We also have evolved over a period of time. When I say evolved, because we've been using analytics prominently. The question that prominently comes in one's mind is that what's the difference between usage of analytics and a robotic audit? The first question that will come, I'm already using analytics, Excel, macros, or any sort of tool that is we are using, W and all that. And queries are built. But I'll say a certain level of advancement, and I won't mix on those words, certain level of advancement, when you say you build a query and the bot is able to open the system, log in the system, generate the raw data from multiple sources, make the data talk to each other, and ultimately come out with conclusions, email it to the functional heads, to the process owners. All of it, when I say, is actually robotic audit. And when we build in capabilities of AI and ML, machine learning, then it can become a predictive audit also. Will there be something which has missed the lens of an individual, but yes, because of the voluminous data, the bot is able to throw out as an exception. It could be a false exception, but still that capability is there or not is the question. So I just thought that when we talk about the 3 lines model, the automation is already there across. It's not just the third line, which is the robotic audit. It's already there in the first line. RPA, majority companies are talking about it. It's there in the second line, and obviously in the third line, which we'll see. Now, what has changed during the evolution of audit? We've seen the video, we saw, we've actually experienced also. We all have at least, I would say, a decade, 2 decades, or even 3 decades of experience. We've seen. If you look at a traditional way of audit, and there are a couple of words which I'll just stress on. There used to be dependency on manpower. And I'm not saying that dependency on manpower will not be there. Perhaps it will not be there for the traditional areas of audit. It will continue to be there for some new areas, which is there. But dependency on manpower, experience, skill sets, limited audit areas, and we'll see how the new upcoming audit areas have come. And we as internal auditors have to free ourselves from the traditional areas so that we can do it. Mindset of detective control mechanism. See, a good organization is which has a preventive as well as a detective control in the ratio of 80-20 in today's time. It could have been more earlier, detective could have been more, but the mindset traditionally was detective control mechanism. Data is available in physical document form, sample-based audit, because technology was not that great an enabler in the traditional form. And it used to be almost 100% on-site audit. A scenario, say 2 or 3 decades back, if it was there, like a COVID, I don't think internal auditors, we would have been able to make that mark. Business contextual. So dependency on manpower was there, plus various tools and techniques. Auditors started looking at how to add value to the business. And if you really want to do that, you have to actually look at the business plan and strategy, link it to that. Yeah. For instance, if a company wants to increase the market share of its particular product, and it launched certain schemes which is there. So one auditor will say, okay, I will look at the scheme. I'll say whether the policy compliance was there or not. The other auditor may actually look at it and say that if we had launched this scheme, what was the impact of that particular scheme? Did we increase the market share or not? And if we did, to what extent we did? And that's something that will also get highlighted in the report. And is it commensurate to the efforts, also in terms of the money that was spent? So you are actually linking it to the strategy where the company is wanting that way. So that was just one example over there. The mindset was towards proactive control, preventive as well as proactive control. When we say proactive, it means preventive basically. Data got available in soft form. So obviously possible to have 100% control testing in most of the areas. Audit actually started giving input on decision making also, like the example I said in terms of the market penetration that was wanted through scheme that was getting launched. And it was an on-site plus off-site audit because you want to do some analytics before you hit the field and focus on some of the specific exceptions that are coming up. Now, in today's time, if you look at it, and I'm not saying it is future, it is much happening now, automated. Very limited dependency on manpower, I would still say, on traditional areas. But yes, on the new areas today, if I have to talk about ESG, I think we are dependent on human knowledge over there. Yeah, if we talk about culture audit, we have to do that. Social media audit, again, we have to do. So obviously free up of the audit resources from the mundane or the repetitive task. And since the audit is conducted off-site, cost savings are also there. If you look at it from a detective to a proactive, it got to a predictive control mechanism. Can you tell me that, okay, there is in my data some sort of a scenario building, and ML actually works when you do a robotic audit over there, machine learning, that the machine is based on a set of sequence of transaction and activities. It knows that this is falling out, there's something wrong. So it'll just give a pop-up as an exception, and then you as auditors can look at it over there. So that's predictive control, 100% data digitization, control testing, majority of the areas, 100%. So why am I saying all this thing is because if you ask me, is robotic audit possible in all organizations? The answer is no. Should the robotic audit be implemented in the most digitized organizations upfront? The answer is no. It has to be a gradual process, which should be there. So Deepti, I see one question. I'm okay to take a pause also. And
please, Sid, no issues at all. You can take this question, how to use technology for PV other than drone.
How to use technology for physical verification other than drone. See, it will again depend on that which area you are talking about. See, normally, when we say drone, it is a physical verification which is in the open. But think of a scenario, you've got barcodes in your inventory, in your warehouse, and you've actually got, say, a drone or a something like a drone, not exactly a drone, but you've got a machine which is moving. And how do I explain this? Because I've seen this sort of a thing. You configure on a particular machine what raw material you want to have it from the store. The machine will automatically move. It has wheels over there. It'll move to that point. It'll recognize the stack point which is there and take out the particular material and put it over there. Same way, if you want to do a physical verification, you can have that sort of a machine to do the complete physical verification. It has to be barcoded. All of it has to be barcoded that way. So it depends on what sort of an inventory are we looking at to be physically verified. If I talk about coal, I talk about metals and all, I think then the name that will strike is drones. But if I talk about inventory in a particular warehouse, I don't think we'll be talking about drones over there. There'll be other machines that can be configured to do that sort of a step. And there are some organizations which are already doing that piece of work as well. I hope that answers, but I'll be happy to take questions as we go along. So we saw the journey of audit, how it has moved. Some of the areas also I've touched in between. Now, what are the challenges which are faced by companies during audits? Data management, time consumed by auditor or process owner in data management, correctness of data extracted. See, time is at the end of the day money. And the time, if it gets delayed, money is lost, but the value of what an auditor, an internal auditor can bring on the table through the internal audit report is also lost. Yeah. So if the time consumption is there in terms of getting the data, extracting the data, looking at the data, correctness of the data, I think it's something that is money lost on the table. Multiple ERPs used by the clients, perhaps auditors may not be acquainted to access all the ERPs. There could be an issue around access rights also. Lack of team continuity, attrition, a big problem in our particular profession, if I can say. We are dependent on team, quality and experience of the team Because if the individual has done the work once, twice, the third time, the efficiency is obviously there. It can be quicker, it can be more insightful. A different approach and methodology that is used. Audit coverage in terms of sample out of the entire population, how much it is being covered. So limited areas are getting covered. Periodicity of audit. If it's a bot-based audit, or even using analytics, advanced analytics, so I can say smart analytics, it's more like a continuous audit or a concurrent audit that can be done for some select areas. Reporting, no consistent format. How do we actually have a consistent report format which addresses the needs of various stakeholders that is there? For decision making, you need real-time information rather than a post-facto thing. So I think bot or technology also enables that sort of a thing. The audit cost, it obviously, if you have, and we'll see how it actually does, the audit cost also gets reduced because a bot is 24/7, and it may be used for some areas in the robotic audit. It may be used for some areas in the audit part of it. So the cost gets reduced. Now, how does these robots reduce the legacy dependencies which are there? Shift of human intelligence to highly efficient artificial intelligence. Yeah. Move towards a highly efficient and improved system, resulting in faster processing. Seamless flow of information across organization and greater security of data. Where I'm basically coming from is that if you look at the challenges which we saw, somewhere those things are getting addressed over. So I don't want to repeat it at the end, that there's a manpower dependency which is getting reduced and all those things. I think it's a clear-cut thing. If we understand there is a bot which is actually being configured in the tablet or the computer that you have, and it is working at the back end, trying to extract the information which is required, like any other human auditor, and doing the work. That's what. So even if we think that, okay, we have to extract the data, is it in hard copy form? OCR can work over there. It can be configured. If the data is coming out, you have already configured which particular field to talk to each other at the back end. What sort of exception reportings have to be there? All of those things have been configured. It can be done effectively. So robotic audit is new normal. And when I say this thing, let's presume in our mind that whatever is being done as an auditor, right from the stage of IDR, the initial data information request that we send, till the stage of report writing, all of it, if that can be done by the bot. That's the thought we must carry in our mind. So end-to-end automation. As a human being, we also think while we do the audit, because if we just look at the black and white, it won't be an effective audit. It's a scenario building also at the end of the day. But let me take a pause over here. When we talk about a robotic audit, a fraud scenario, though it may indicate, has to have a human intervention, because I will show you the areas of audit that we do and how much of automation is possible in that. And here I'm just highlighting it. The balance, if it is like 70% possible, 80% possible, the balance is actually this. How do you give a comfort that the anti-fraud controls is in place? The bot can do that. But has a scenario got built? Can you join the dots by various exceptions? Is something which, yeah, we can at some stage try and configure that thing, but the fertile mind of human being, it will take time to be replaced by bots. So that is something which, as internal auditors, our role will be. So the knowledge that we need to exhibit, whether it's to do with a fraud scenario, whether it's to do with the cyber controls, whether it is to be the data privacy norms, controls around the same, that's something which will get expected to be done by us. And user experience, last mile integration, all of it, higher level of user experience, employee and customer, minimize human intervention. And at the end of the day, if a bot is being used, you can, because everything has a cost attached to it and you want to see the return. And it's very much possible. Logs and trail to measure the bot performance that is there. I will just pause and take some questions because I see 4-5 of them.
Yeah, I think, Sid, I think one of the questions is that how can you increase efficiency or maximize efficiency in an IFC scenario or a SOC scenario by using
So bot,
automation?
very much possible. It is very much possible. See, when we talk about, so what I'll do though, in this deck, I have only talked about internal audit. There are some slides I have on SOX, on IFC, on ICO for bot. The methodology will remain the same, but it's only the coverage will be different. So maybe I'll send you another pack and that can also be later circulated. But whatever I'll be talking about over here, and I'll show you, I think there is a ask also to show a demo, which I will be sharing. There are 7 demos in this presentation. I will not be able to show all. Perhaps I will take one of them, and at a click of a button, anybody who wants to look at it, they can see all the 7 of it. But the idea is to show that how it is actually happening over there. Yeah. And
the second question is that can you give practical examples of, how do you automate in internal audit, how do you use continuous control monitoring and scenarios?
see, just give me a second. See, as far as continuous control monitoring, I would say this has already been used in the past. Through smart analytics, we've been doing that. How do we do that is, think of the scenario that you've got a control framework in place. There is a risk that is already highlighted. There is a control against which is highlighted. Now, control to be evaluated will have certain data points. Now, when you configure, it's a SAP. For an example, I'm taking an SAP, and in the SAP, you create a Z report, which is a customized report, and you say, okay, if I want to see a very simple example that for every PO, there is a requisition which is raised or not, and it is being approved or not, then I just need to call out those relevant fields by configuring it in the SAP through a Z report, which is having those queries inbuilt, that, okay, these are the fields where the PO will come, these are the fields where PR will come. You have to actually look at the date of the PO and the date of the PR. Was it an emergency procurement or not? And based on that, you come up with an exception report. So that's a continuous, that was like a very, very rudimentary example, but we can have similar way a continuous control monitoring inbuilt in this. Even CSA, a control self-assessment, is on same lines. Yeah. So
may I just add to that, Sid? I'm very sorry, but there are a number of, if people go back to Analytics Wednesday series, you'll find number of speakers who have already spoken and given practical examples, like you have said, in the purchase scenario, procure to pay cycle, order to, cash cycle. So most of that can be automated not only through external bots, but you can actually, as Sid rightly said, you can do it using the same ERP like SAP. You can build all the within an ERP.
I will actually not call it a bot.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a continuous control monitoring, it's not a bot.
Yes.
I know I don't want to create too much of suspense, as I will show a particular sample of how the bot is working. I think the clarity will also come over there. But before that, so I'll quickly run through some of these slides. If you look at an internal audit process, yeah, and this is interesting because the question that may come is that during the life cycle of an audit that we do, so thinking that, okay, we're doing a procurement or order to cash or whichever review we are doing, how much time are we spending, and is it really possible? And if possible, to what extent, and what is the complication or the complexity of automating that particular step which is there? So if you look at the as-is process, it says review previous year's internal audit reports and current years. Normally, that is the tendency that we'll see, a very practical way to look at it. The time that may be spent, approximately 8%. Can we automate it? No. And I'll tell you why. We can, it is low, because the human intelligence, when we say a robotic audit, it doesn't mean that the human being is not there. Maybe for some of the sub-processes or some of the activities, the human intervention may not be required. But obviously, for some of the things, it is needed. When you have to join the dots, build a scenario and all, it has to be there. For example, if you think that there is a fraud scenario, I'll just pick a fraud scenario because that's where I'm talking about. There is a procurement of material. that is happening, which is not getting used on the floor, raw material, and it is getting piled up. The report is going to reflect, the bot is going to reflect, this is a material which is in excess, it is non-moving for 3 years, whatever the definition will be put it, whether it's 2 years or 3 years, and ultimately it will show the report. Now, and it will also show there was a requisition which was raised, and it has the material has been received against what was already there in the stock, for instance. Now, if I want to join all these dots as a human being and see that subsequently, if there is a scrap which has been sold, has that material been sold as a scrap? And believe me, this it's a very practical example. I've personally seen these type of instances also, not naming any, but a material which is getting bought, the 3 coats and all are kosh, getting piled up, after 3 years, getting sold to a scrap, the vendors are all aligned. And unless somebody looks at it, a good desktop review, perhaps it may not be possible. Your bot is going to show you all exceptions, and which will be valid exceptions. But can we join those exceptions and see, are we missing the bigger picture? Is there an elephant in the room which we are missing? Is something that the auditor will have to see. And the auditor can utilize the time if they free up their time from doing the rudimentary thing. That's where I wanted to highlight this. So then we have the data extraction. Obviously, that can be done by the bot. We'll see it how in a while. Sample selection, very much possible. To a large extent, it is 100%. Testing, exception reporting, mail communication with process owners, all of it is again possible. Just you make it like a human being over there. Management response, yes, it is possible, but still, sometimes you have to align it with the finding. Practically talking about medium level, I would say. Drafting of report, yeah, that can be done by the bot. Final presentation is again something which is low, and it has to be, because that's where the human intervention will come into play. So that was the life cycle, if you see. So perhaps if you want to just summarize it, you'll say the extraction of data, cleansing of data, analyzing the data, exception reporting, and drafting communication is all that is done by the bot. If you talk about a CCM, perhaps extraction of data, cleaning, analysis, and reporting, but on select pieces where there is not too much of complexity involved, the CCM, a smart analytics can do. But where you want multiple files to talk to each other, yeah, a lot of different databases are being used, different ERPs are being used. I know of one organization which used to have a laundry list of ERPs, and for right reasons over there. So it used to be almost like 30 ERPs which are being used. It was a mammoth task to actually look at for the auditors. But so I'll say that, okay, the time that was getting consumed is drastically getting reduced when it is being done by the bot. At the same time, with a higher level of, I would say, intelligence that gets built. Now, here is something which again is interesting. How does the bot actually work? How do you actually want the bot to work rather? So you go from bottom to top, the 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got the transaction testing library, which is there, the exception library. So where I'm coming from is year on year. So first year, the bot does an audit, the transaction testing is built, exception library is getting fed over there. So bot, you are trying to teach the bot, ML, machine learning, you're trying to teach the bot that, okay, this is, if this is a particular exception, this is what you need to report, and this is how you do it. What was it done in the past? So the bot is working on the live data on a particular ERP, goes back on its database, which is this, looks at the exception library, observation report library, talks to it. Is it a repeat observation, for example, or something like that has happened? Also, you can build an industry company insight, best practices. It will pick up the relevant piece, because how do you do that? You'll actually configure some of the keywords for it. It will search those words automatically, because you already, the way human being is doing it, same way it will do. So it's slightly, I would not slightly, to a large extent beyond the CCM that we were talking about when we talk about bot over there. But all the different ways of working, whether it's a CCM or a CSA or a robotic audit, they all have their importance. And I think, frankly, honestly, RA, which is robotic audit, is in place, but can we do it for all? Like I said, even the most digitized ones, I don't think we should plunge immediately over it. the maturity of the data, which is there, the maturity of the processes, all of it needs to get aligned so that there is no misreporting that happens. Otherwise, the human efforts are going to drastically get increased over there. Now, using bots for internal audit, reading documents, using OCRs and all, whether it is in different formats, PDF, Word, Excel, all of that, you can configure, you can make the bot intelligent by feeding certain type of queries, by giving those instructions that this is how it has to do. Extraction of data from multiple ERPs, different websites. I don't have that today demo, but a logistics company, and you want to see whether there is a excess cost that has been paid. So it will pick up, go to the website, Google Map, find out the distance, put the distance in the Excel file, map it with the existing fields that have been already punched in the system, and come up with the exception. Was it the optimum route or not? All those type of things and that's what we do. We also as auditors will be doing all those steps which are there. Data analysis, transactions, reconciliation, if then rules, all of that can be pre-fed, configured, and connecting through various application processing interfaces that are there, drafting of the report, and then finally mailing the report to the process owners, the functional heads. So this is the slide where I have these 7 ones. See, I'll just show one, which is the second one, checking emergency change identification, SOD conflict. Normally, if you look at it, there is a change because of some emergency that has been done, and later there is does it lead to some sort of a segregation of duties conflict? If it does, how can the bot actually help recognize all those things, come up with those exceptions, and it becomes more like a real time? So this is something which has been also, I would say, a big ask by many of the organizations. So it will just open, I think, in a minute or so. Till that time, if there are any questions, I can take that, Deepji.
I think there's a question that do you build your own bot or do you buy it from the market because there are ready-made bots available?
Both options are there. And ideally, I would say it should be rightly configured. Because it should be editable. If you buy a bot, it should be editable because every business will have their own way of working. So but it's perfectly fine. Both things are, in fact, it's actually strange, but reality that even the first line that we saw, the first line model, the process owners, where you want to actually have a RPA build, robotic process. Supposing the payment process is done on a RPA, and the window is free in that bot because the bot can work 24/7. You can actually configure the bot to do the audit for the rest period of time, and the cost can also be shared by the first and the third line.
What robotic tool for auditing is available presently that is effective?
See, it's all customized. There are companies, technology companies also, which the corporate doctors, internal auditors, I call them as corporate doctors, they join hands with them and together they do it. See, I don't think we as corporate doctors, internal auditors have to bother about technology. We have to leave the technology to the IT companies and focus on governance at the same time. So this doesn't have a volume. What is happening is the bot is actually opening up the ERP. Here it is a SAP. So normally when we open a SAP, we put the username, password, and the logon language. So it is doing all that stuff. The file gets opened, and it will go to the 70 field that is there, 070 report. Now, if you look at it, all of this is being done by the bot. So this is the way the human being will also do. This is the E070 table. So bot opens that. It will look at the exceptions that are coming, and it'll open an Excel file. You'll see it in a while, and it'll keep on pasting all those details. Then it will transfer all this data, exception data, in the Excel file. I'm just showing so that
I think Sid, we cannot see the screen.
Oh, you're not able to see. Sorry.
No, we cannot see it. We are just looking at the download screen, Google Drive.
I think let me then just share it again. Yeah. I don't know why it is not able to show, because I could see that, and that's why I was actually. No, this is the screen, I think, which you are able to see, no?
Yes.
No, it won't that way. I don't know, when I'm looking at this, it is not showing that particular, though it is, I can still see it is going on over there. It's not.
Sid, can you share your entire screen? The entire screen? Maybe you're just sharing one part of your screen.
I'm actually trying to do that, but it's not giving me that option.
Let me do one thing. I'll reclaim host and make you host again. Let's see if it makes a difference.
Sure, sure.
So I've made you the host again. Just see if it works now.
See, if it is possible and you have the file, because it's still not showing me, I'm okay if you want to show, you just have to click at that button, and it'll be great if we can show that video to all.
I don't have the file with me.
Oh. Deepji, you have the file? Can that be sent to...
That file is not available with me also, Sid.
Oh.
What we can do is, you can discuss it here, and you can send that file, and we'll mail it to all the participants today.
Yeah. Any case, it will be sent to all the participants. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me just give one last try if it opens.
Yeah, please.
Can you see?
Yes, now it is visible.
Finally.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it is not in the full. I don't know how much it is visible. Otherwise, it comes.
It is not available in full screen.
You can click on the bottom right hand side. There's a button for full screen. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Please.
Okay, so I was actually giving an example.
Yes, now it's full screen.
Yeah, looking at this. So this is where I was saying that it is trying to enter the SAP using the username, password, and all, and with the relevant T code, it will again punch in the details. You'll just see in a while that it will open that particular page. The table, which is the E070 for the SOD, it's going to open that with the relevant fields getting. So this is how we also do when we are actually logging in the SAP and punching all the relevant details, the period that we want to call out the data for and all. And now it is going to open the exception report over there, take the screenshots, put it in the Excel file. Later, it is going to translate. See, normally when we have the data in ERP or SAP over here, you can actually translate it into an Excel file, which we'll just see that will do that as well, come up with the exceptions. Once we go to that particular step, then I'll just show, because then it will keep on doing multiple of those fields. I will just go towards where it is actually sending the exception report to the users. So one stitch will not fit all, as I think there was a question around this, but one stitch will not fit all. So if there is a bot already in place, perhaps the effort to configure that will get reduced, but it will not. So these are various exceptions which it is trying to show when that report is getting opened in ERP. here SAP. It can do it in JD Edwards, Oracle, any of it. So I don't want to put it any particular. So now it's converting this particular data into a spreadsheet. This is how we actually do it. You press the generate button and save it on a desktop or whichever folder you want to do. So it's already compared with the emergency also. It'll filter those out. See, when we talk about a CCM or we talk about a smart analytics, I don't think this much of will be possible over there. I've not seen that. So that's why we are saying that this is something which is being done by the bot. I think what I'll do, it is just trying to paste those things.
Right.
In the sense of time, I will just try and move forward over there. It will continue to do that, those documents, but I want to show later part when it is sending those emails and all, because it's a long
Right.
POC, a long one. Yeah, this is where it is filtering and all in the Excel. Emergency change identification. Wherever those exceptions have come out, perhaps where it could not see the approval and all. So here is this, that it has opened the Outlook. It's now punching the email IDs and all. It's going to then write the email, body of the email, what is the contents. So once you configure the check that is to be carried out, in case of an exception that is coming, you already configure it in the bot that, okay, this is the language. It may be perhaps a standard language that comes. So that's, and it is picking the file, attach it and send. So I will have to now, you can see the PPT, right? I'm just confirming that the PPT is back visible. No?
Yes, the robotic audit.
Robotic audit PPT, yeah.
Yes.
So these are like 7 proof of concepts, the POCs which are there, depending on different industry. It's like illustrative. It's completely illustrative, but these are use cases. This has already been done, dusted, delivered, and clients are using all of this. But the data is obviously masked over there. Names and everything is that way masked. So I will not take more of the POCs. This can separately be seen by all the participants, because that's just, you just have to click it. And now where I was coming from is that the illustrative areas for applications of robotic audit. Now here, whether it's a support function or typically in the operational area, supply chain, the percentages are also mentioned. HR 70%, procure to pay 75%, branding, social media 70%, same way. These are some of the areas where the usage of bot is very much possible. It is not industry specific, it is general. I have kept in the deck 2 industries also, hotels, volumes of data over there. And I think if we look at it, front office is one of the key areas. And a lot of analytics can be done in that. So selling room nights lower than the bar, which is the best available rate, and same way so on. These are like the various areas within, it's not a scope of work, the various areas that a bot can be used. And obviously this will entail something which you really want to do it on a proactive basis. And we all know in hotels, there is a concept of night audit. Some hotels have done away with that, but night audit is that you want to have it on a real-time basis so that before a checkout, you can actually, you can see the right billing, which is happening. That's the essence.
I think Sid, sorry to interrupt, with the advent of technology and with, powerful systems and bots and, analytics, smart analytics, and with continuous monitoring, many hotels have thought it fit not to have the night auditor, because whatever the night auditor used to do, all that checklist and all that has been fed into the computers, and they can independently check that, at the end of the day.
Now hotels are doing away with that.
Yes.
There was a time I've done a lot of those.
Yeah.
Hospitals again.
Yes.
Lot of data flows over there. So this all I thought I will just share. Now, if you look at it, the ask of internal audit, and I proudly call it as a digital, intelligent, analytical, smart IA program, internal audit program. So smart analytics will continue to be there because everything will not get as part of RA. The anti-fraud controls focus on that. Companies Act 2013, first time in India, has already highlighted it as part of IFC, which is very much evident in the section 134, which is their cyber controls. Operational auditing, when we talk about industry-specific nuances, I think today if we talk about a support function like a finance and accounts, I don't think a finance and accounts, even in a particular sector, can be done just by considering as a support function. Say, for instance, if you want to do it in an ENR, energy and natural resource, oil and gas particularly, is very typical with those block accounts and all those things coming up already in place. So industry insights are required, compliance review, whether it's a financial reporting compliance or various other compliances. And I think the biggest change that has come is after this COVID, and I have a slide on that as well, is the resilience part. How can organizations become more resilient? And I think the endemic has, and why I'm sharing all this thing is because that's where the auditors have to focus on. That's where the ask is also, do we really go by the SOP, what is written, or should we identify key controls and the auditor should focus on those key controls? What sort of unfortunately, we had a huge problem, what we saw in terms of cash flows, working capital crunch on account of this pandemic, which was there. Everybody wanted to focus on that. Cyber risk, bring your own device, remote access. What are the controls against the same? Changing regulations. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of that, and it is still flowing over there. So I think from pure per se traditional audit, it's to the operational business performance excellence that is the ask by the auditors. And obviously, having said that, control around cyber, anti-fraud controls, because is there something drastically going wrong? Is a clear ask by all the audit committees these days. So we have to give a comfort around that. If you look at an internal audit way of working, the methodology, the 6-step approach, knowledge of business, planning, gathering information, analytics, fieldwork, and audit reporting. Though we spoke about robotic audit, I think all of this can be done remotely. So which means if we have a RA, a robotic audit, plus the capability to use various technology enablers under each of these steps, and in each of these 6 steps with the icons, it has got highlighted that what particular technology enabler can support, whether it's an email or it's a, today we are making this presentation also to the audience using the technology which is in place. Yeah. So same way we can do the audit, we can have discussions, we can have meetings. But having said that, I will say that it cannot rule out the importance of a face-to-face meeting. So a blend is always good. It's not that we have to just rely on that. And before I conclude, I will just highlight in a summary form these new areas, internal audit areas, because as the internal auditors get a free time from the traditional 5 audit areas that I spoke about, or majority of the sub-processes within that, the focus can come as part of the audit plan. Let's do ESG, culture audit of automated process, because once you have automated a process, that doesn't mean that everything will go right. So the auditor will have to go to the queries that have been there as part of that particular RPA and then come up with, so my report will not be, obviously those exceptions will come, but how can you better the existing automated process, not automated audit, but the automated process? How do you do that? Risk management, I think that's an ask. Strategy, looking at the strategy, is the risk not to be mitigated, but has to feedback the strategy, and there's a change or input which the auditor can bring on the table for the consideration of the board, is again something. So compliance reviews, data privacy, I related it to the budget also, that this is going to come up. Already it's there, but prominence will increase, perhaps cyber security, social media audits. So that's something which I think will are already seeing the light of the day and will gain more focus and momentum. So that was pretty much. I'm happy that the video could also be shown, because and there are other 6 videos which I'll be happy all the participants can look into that.
And I think this slide is most important, because I think there are some questions on about your mobile number and emails, which you already put it up for everybody to see. Yes, Sid.
So basically, I think they have asked for the PPT also, which is fine. It can be shared.
Yeah.
See, there is one question. Normally, it's UiPath Automation Anywhere they are doing.
Yes.
It's always in collaboration with that.
Right.
So from my side, thanks Deepji, and thanks to all the participants. I know I don't want to come in way of dinner. It has been a good working day for all of us, maybe from work from anywhere, or it's a blend now back in offices. But I hope this 1 hour spent was at least some to large extent enticing. And I am okay to take questions later as well in case somebody has. Yeah.
Sure. I think the number and the email ID is there. And if you send questions to us, we'll forward it to Sid. I don't see any more questions. How Mazars is sourcing bots? That's one question.
So see, whether it's Mazars or any other organization, they all have back-to-back arrangements. So I said AA, Automation Anywhere, UiPath, and there are some others as well. All have those arrangements, because at the end of the day, we as advisors, I don't say Mazars, I'm saying all in the fraternity are, like I said, corporate doctors. So we have to look at governance. We don't have to dilute the focus that we need to have, but at the same time, we need to get smart in terms of way of working. And that's where we will leverage on the technology which is in place, the process insights, the business insights, the frameworks, global frameworks that are there, and the learnings that we have gained. We will obviously leverage the technology business partners that we have to come up with things, so that we get a free time and we are able to focus on something which is the ask by majority of the stakeholders today, and which I said as part of the new areas is very much evident.
Thank you very much, Sid. I can just add to what Sid said. First of all, it was a wonderful presentation, because it opens the eyes to what are the possibilities. I think what is more important, the takeaway from this presentation, the first and the last, the primary takeaway is that there is a immense possibility for audit fraternity to use technology to the full extent. The second part is you can use technology, you can automate, you can do audit, you can pass on that knowledge to the process owner, so that the auditor can move on to the next level. The auditor can move on to do something more. In the slide before this slide, I think Sid showed what are the things which an auditor can look at: social media, ESG, etc. There's so many things, which is possible for an auditor to audit and look at or advise as a consultant. So I think that's what is coming out. The number 2 is, we also as a company, when we look around the landscape in India and abroad, because I think India is not disconnected from the rest of the world. So whatever is being used in North America or by other in Europe or other countries comes to India very fast. It's like, it's a connected world. In fact, you would find a lot of internal audit departments are carrying out auditing from India for the rest of the world. So India is becoming a hub for carrying out internal audit for the rest of the world. Naturally, because you have adopted the frameworks, the technology, so we can speak the same language, we can impart the same knowledge to the rest of the world, and that is why that's happening. We are seeing that happen. So what I can say is there's a lot of technology available in terms of ETLs, smart analytics, continuous control monitoring, bots, the ERPs themselves. So I think everything has to be leveraged. What is important is to understand what you want to achieve. What is that, what the auditor wants to get at, what do you want to achieve, and then pick and choose the appropriate cost effective technology. and then implement that, because there has to be return, there value to what an auditor does or what an organization does. So I think that becomes very important. But really a eye-opening session, a great session, Sid. As we receive the slides, we'll mail it out to everyone. Sid, of course, everybody is saying that it was wonderful session, good session, really excited about this. So a lot of compliments for you. I'm not going into individual comments, Sid, but let me thank you on behalf of Sama. Personally, as Deepji Singhal, I would like to thank you for sharing all this knowledge with us. And I'm sure that people, the professionals, are going to use more and more technology. And as I said, my personal dream is that, India would become the hub for auditing, as it has become. India would take a lead in actually delivering external audit, internal audit, consulting services, for the rest of the world. So that's a dream which I'm talking about, and that is sure to happen. So thank you very much, Sid. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Deepji, and thanks to all the participants. It was wonderful interacting with all.
Thank you very much to all the participants also. And next week, again, we meet on Wednesday at 7 p.m. for the next session of Analytics Wednesday. Thank you, Sid. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.